evening, Speaker admits motion for the Domestic Debt Action Program to be submitted to Parliament. We will interrogate further into the issues, including the implications for Ghana's quest to secure an IMF program by end of March. Stay with us. We have the persons who sign up to this private members motion joining us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We have an economist as well who's going to be sharing his thoughts on the implications of this development in Parliament. Also, pre-tertiary teacher unions suspend payment of subscription fees to National Pensions Regulatory Authority and PRA, accusing the regulator of not living up to its mandate. Details coming up. Also, Nigeria's Supreme Court declares old Naira notes as legal tender, bringing relief to millions affected by a chaotic currency redesign. We'll tell you details of that shortly when we cross over to Nigeria live. We'll bring you also the post-electoral issues that happened in Nigeria over the last 48 hours. My colleague Komla Kluche is back in Ghana, having manned the election command center coverage of the Nigerian elections. All these plus more here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up in business.
Government spent over 4 billion cedis in interest payments on treasury bills alone in the last 3 months.
Dela Michelle joins us later with all the news in the world of business. We have sports and entertainment coming up as well over the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Plus, we'll tell you the health benefits of eating gobe ahead of the Gobe Festival tomorrow, the 3FM Gobe Festival at the Tetekwashi Interchange, the heart of the city. We will be there.
Yes, we will be there. We'll definitely be there to enjoy some gobe, you know.
Indeed. Yeah, so we'll talk a bit more about it as we go on here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's get into it now, shall we? We're live on 3FM 927 on Facebook and Twitter. Live now. Let's get into the details. As we're learning now that the minority caucus in Parliament has succeeded with a private members' motion for the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to present the Domestic Debt Action Program to the House for consideration. Now, the private members' motion was moved by the minority leader, Dr. Kesela Toforsen, Minority Chief Whip Governs Kwame Agboja, and Boko Central Member of Parliament Mama Yariga, and Bolgatanga Central MP Isaac Adongo, and finally Member of Parliament for South Dai, Nelson Roxon Dafiamepo. Now, in February, the Finance Minister, if you recall, appeared before Parliament to brief the House on the Domestic Debt Action Program, but failed to respond to questions about, for instance, how this is going to impact on our total debt, public debt as a country, and the legality of this whole Domestic Debt Exchange Program. That question was posed by the Member of Parliament for the Boko Central, that's Mama Yarga, who is one of 5 persons who actually signed this private member's motion. Now, the latest move by the minority therefore seeks to unravel policy details of the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. Now, the Speaker also admitted a minority motion to cause an audit of the National Cathedral. That motion was filed by the minority leader, also Dr. Kesela Toforsen. On this second motion, Samuel Akujeto Blakwa, Helen Adjoa Ntoso, Governs Kwame Agboja, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, the Deputy Minority Leader and MP for Lembele constituency, and Dr. Dominic Ayeni as well. Now, the Member of Parliament for South Dai, Nelson Roxon Dafiamepo, has been explaining the reasoning behind these 2 motions, which have actually been admitted by the Speaker today.
Because the motion in respect of the demand for the entire debt exchange program to be brought to Parliament for consideration, we demanded for the Finance Minister to come and brief Parliament on the program. It took some time, but when he came 2 weeks ago, he came to brief Parliament all right, but he never brought the terms and conditions of the program. So after we speak, we don't know the underpinning policies, the conditions that the government is rolling out this policy in respect of the external exchange program as well as the domestic exchange program. So we got together, some members of parliament, including myself, the leader, Chris, the Honorable Isaac Adongo, and Senior Ayariza. We got together and said, we have to have the program brought to parliament for our consideration, because parliament has to decide for the people. We are the people's representatives. The majority of persons who have invested in this bond are going to be affected. We as their representatives need to have a look at it, consider the terms carefully, and advise the position if it becomes important for us to do so. Okay. And we're also doing so within our constitutional mandate of oversight. And so in those times, we filed a motion, and we were even hoping that it would have been admitted last week. So by this week, it would have been taken, moved as it were. Okay. But however long it is taken, Speaker has today admitted it. And so we hope that next week we'll move it and have this matter dealt with.
Well, so that's the detail that we have now from the Member of Parliament for the South Dike constituency, Nelson Roxon Dafiamepo there. So these are the developments in Parliament earlier today. Very interesting times that we have ahead of us and how things are going to play out, as the Speaker of Parliament has admitted a private member's motion from the Minority Caucus to allow the setting up of a committee to probe the National Cathedral and all the related matters in terms of the amount of money that has been spent, and also whether there's actually a policy document on the National Cathedral, and when is the date for completion, for instance, and what is the current state of affairs with the National Cathedral, how much money has been spent so far, and what are the sources of the money that the finance minister indicated were going to be used to complete this National Cathedral. And these are questions begging for answers that Samuel Okujetua Blackwell, the North Town Member of Parliament, a number of people have been asking. That is not the only motion that was admitted by the Speaker. Also, the Speaker has admitted the motion by the Minority Caucus in Parliament, that private member's motion for the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to present the domestic debt restructuring program to the House for consideration. Now, I want to find out if that could possibly impact on the duration that the Finance Minister and the President talked about, Ghana getting the board's approval, that the IMF board's approval for this domestic debt action program. Professor Lord Mensah is an associate professor at the University of Ghana Business School. He's joining us on the telephone. Professor Lord Mensah, thank you so much for your time on Hot Edition. So this is the development in Parliament today. The Speaker has admitted that private members' motion asking the Finance Minister to come before the House to brief Parliament on the domestic debt action program. What's the possible impact on the duration for this DDEP that the government talks about, that by end of March we should have it?
Yeah, of course, I mean, the exchange is almost near conclusion. But then as to whether the procedures that were supposed to be followed, I think was inverted, in the sense that the finance minister started the process, before thinking about, possibly the parliament. And even the parliament, it has to be called by the speaker to come and, lay down the entire process before parliament. We might think, the entire debt exchange was just for investors, but it's the nation's, program. I can tell you that if the debt exchange does not go well, at the end of the day, and the economy struggles, it will affect all of us. And already we are all in this. And the debt exchange is one of the reforms that we can use to, bring, the economy to a good shape. So effectively, they were supposed to start from Parliament, get the buy-in of the people's representatives before, the investors will even start raising, their concerns. So for me, going to Parliament is part of the process. And I believe that with the numbers that were sent out by the finance minister indicating that he's gotten, 8% of the active, bonds as a successful, DDEP, probably he may go ahead, for the to start engaging the IMF. So effectively, I would say that yes, the parliament engagement was supposed to come earlier, but it's better late than never.
But taking into consideration the fact that government itself, indeed the finance minister and the president, they've been quite clear in their language that we are racing against time as a country to get the board approval that's the IMF board approval for this deal that we are there for. We are currently engaging the Chinese. So taking into consideration the fact that we don't have time on our side, I mean, how would you expect that Parliament, while performing their duties, demanding accountability and some explanation from the finance minister, would also bear in mind the duration for this program?
Well, I don't think it will have much impact because what is required of the finance minister to have a successful, debt exchange before going further to engage the IMF. I think from the last announcement that was made on the debt exchange has been done. And effectively, what is being done now by Parliament is more or less just a formality. And like I said, that call was supposed to come earlier. And so if you look at whether the suggestions that will be made by Parliament and all those is going to delay the engagement with IMF, I don't think that will engage the IMF. The process has been done already. The debt exchange has been concluded, and I believe to the satisfaction of management of the economy, which includes the finance minister himself, we are ready to go further with the IMF program.
And finally, you've also been monitoring the happenings, the engagement with China as well. Are we confident
that would be very, very important because at the end of the day, China plays a major role when it comes to the bilateral debt that we have, and it is expected that if we get a good deal from them, we should have a headway with the others. We should understand the dynamics of finance. When it comes to finance and liberalism and possible forgiveness of debt, I think the Western countries are better off than the Eastern countries, and which China forms part of the Eastern countries. So China will be one of the unique, creditors that we may have on our table that possibly we need to deal with them differently. And I believe that even though we might call it, probably if we should get something from them, we might call it, debt forgiveness. Definitely nothing goes free. Probably we may get a restructure in terms of the time to maturity of the debt at hand as far as China's engagement is concerned, and possibly also a reduction in interest rate. Of course, when you prolong, the debt, it is expected that the rate will, come down. So those are the things we may get as we got from the domestic market.
See, but I was just talking about, and finally, this is fun to you, the details of this deliberation. From what we understand, there's a Chinese delegation already in town engaging government on how things are going to play out. But you have knowledge of how these engagements indeed pan out. With all these developments, how that is Parliament now demanding the finance minister comes to give details. How will the external bondholders who are yet to be engaged also react to these developments on the local scene?
Yeah, obviously, external bondholders who are investors will also like to know exactly what is happening at the domestic front. Because, once government is able to get a successful, domestic, debt restructuring, then obviously it has a tendency of reducing the burden. And that will serve as an advantage that government can go into negotiations with. So obviously their ears will be on the ground here to know exactly what's happening. But like I said, if we should play by the numbers and what was announced, the closure of the debt exchange, whatever is happening in Parliament now, I don't believe it will have much impact on the external, the creditors space, because they are dealing with the domestic debt exchange, and we have concluded it, as the finance minister announced.
We'll see how things play out. Professor Lord Mensah, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Professor Lord Mensah is an associate professor of finance at the University of Ghana Business School, giving us details of the possible implications of this latest development in Parliament. Look, if you're just joining us, some 15 minutes after 5 here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, here's what's happened in Parliament earlier today. The Minority Caucus in Parliament has succeeded with a private member's motion for the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to present the domestic debt restructuring program to the House for consideration. The motion was moved by the Minority Leader, Kesla, to forcing the Minority Chief Whip, Governs Kwame Agboja, and Boko Central Member of Parliament, Mama Yariga. Also, you have Boga Central Member of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, and Member of Parliament for the South Dyke constituency, Nelson Russell and Dr. McPaul. Now, Ken Ofori-Atta in February, if you recall, appeared before Parliament to brief the House on the Domestic Debt Action Program. The move was necessitated when the Minority Caucus demanded policy detail on the DDEP as a result of the picketing of pensioners and the Ministry of Finance demanding exemptions from the Domestic Debt Action Program. Now, the Voluntary Debt Action Program seeks to tackle, as we do know now, the current economic crisis and bring back the macroeconomic stability and guarantee sustainable growth. But we want to understand the legal implications of this, right? And private legal practitioner Martin Pebo is joining us on the telephone. Lawyer Martin Pebo, thank you so much for time on Hot Edition. I mean, even though this motion has been admitted by the Speaker, it would come down to the numbers, is it not?
Yes, you are perfectly right. So that's the whole thing. The numbers matter, but it also helps to strengthen our democracy. So far, what the minority have done and what is going to be done in terms of moving the motion, the debate, and all that, it's a conversation. It's about asking for accountability, etc. So it's good for our democracy. You know, it's not always about winning, but the more we talk, the more we debate, then it's likely we find solutions that we hadn't thought about, you know. So for me, I'm all for it, even if eventually the minority don't get their way.
In the spirit of the accountability that you expect that this motion would achieve, would you also, in that same spirit, call on the majority who, I mean, it comes to the numbers, yes, the majority will have their way, but if we are talking about accountability, they should also be seen exhibiting some support for the element of accountability?
Yes, absolutely. I do, especially in the context of the a number of things, even in Parliament itself. Number one, when we took our petition to Parliament, you know, we met both the majority and the minority. At least on the day, we had a meeting in the majority leader's office, I mean, and with him, and also the minority were present. Honorable Kujita Blakwa, the current minority leader, Mr. Atuforsen, and then Abuja, MP for Adaklu, etc. So and both sides made the point that this domestic debt exchange program had the risk of even wiping out the middle class. Actually, that came from the majority leader, but the minority representatives, that the Honorable Harun Edrusu wasn't present, Honorable Atuforsen, Okujito Ablakwa, and the rest represented them. They also made similar statements saying that, look, this thing could wreck the middle class. And true, you know, you take somebody's bond this year, you are not going to pay him much. You want to offer 10%. Some have ended up signing and all that, when the person should be getting 18.5, 19.5, and all that, and etc. So it is something that Honorable Chairman Sabutu had bemoaned clearly, and even after the meeting with him, he granted several interviews that I monitored, meaning that he really spoke with conviction. Okay, so considering that he spoke with conviction on this matter, I think that once there's merit, the majority should join. And also, you remember the majority, the MP, 88, who later became 98, and then even eventually, Honorable Chairman Sabunsu said it's even the whole of the majority caucus when they came out and asked President Kufuor to spark the financing to Koreata for despicable conflict of interest, for running the economy down, etc. I think that these are some of the things. So this particular this motion brings to play some of the very things these MPs have said. So they should walk the talk, because we are suffering under President Kufuor and Koreata. We are suffering while they have become very, very, very rich as a result of Data Bank getting commissions and fees from these very bonds that we borrowed. All of the bonds, Data Bank had a role to play. So they earn commissions and fees. And so now they've made President Kufuor and Oforiatta very rich. So this is the time for accountability. Yes.
Now, look at the strength of this motion, especially on the domestic debt exchange program. The Honorable Mama Yariga and then the 4 others who got the Speaker to admit this private member's motion are leveraging on Article 181 of the Constitution and also the Public Financial Management Act. The majority, and indeed, if you listen to assigns of the Finance Ministry, they make the point that this is not an entirely new loan or arrangement. And so that's going to be their defense against it. So what's the position or your understanding of the law regarding what happened with the domestic debt exchange program and the finance minister offering new bonds to those who have traded their bonds under the DDEP?
Well, Mr. Ocansey, I will tell you without any equivocation that if we are talking pure law, obviously the DDEP represents fresh loans. Yeah, fresh loans, because they say bring your old bond, it is cancelled and replaced with a new one, with new terms. So if we are talking pure law, very few lawyers would disagree with Honorable Mama Yariga. And you know, was it last week or 2 weeks before, he and I and others, yes, about 2 weeks, yes, the Saturday before last Saturday, we were on your program.
Indeed.
The key points on Saturday. And Honorable Mama Yariga's arguments were unassailable. On the face of it, simple. Their old bonds, those who participated in the DDEP, do they still have their old bonds? No. What do they have? New bonds with new terms. So it's a new borrowing. Yes. So this one, that's why I say if we are talking pure law, very few lawyers would disagree with Honorable Mama Yariga. But unfortunately, because this is politics, and you know our politics has not been that honest. We have the issues of integrity. Even when the thing is black, you see some of our MPs falling over themselves to defend the indefensible there. So, well, we can't really be sure of what will happen. But like I say, we are urging them, the majority, to support Honorable Mama Yariga. At this point, it will help all of us. And you see, so I can say the good thing this will do is that it will now change the convention, the understanding that, when it comes to domestic bonds, usually you don't need parliamentary approval, which is wrong. See, you have Article 181, is it clause 3 or so? It says that the terms and conditions must be approved. The terms and conditions. But you see, the practice has been, we're all told out of law school, when you come into a law firm that does commercial law and these, you are told that, when it comes to domestic bonds, once the figures are captured in the budget, that is it. Yeah, that's what we're... So, you come as a junior lawyer, you are told that by the dons, and so you also just go along. But it's good that Honorable Mama Yariga has read the Constitution again, and it's so plain. You don't need any sophistry. It's just plain. That's why I said all we have to ask ourselves is that the old bonds that those who participated had, where are they? Are they still existing? If we all agree that those bonds have been cancelled and replaced with new ones, then come on, Honorable Mama Yariga, and let me say Ghana wins. Ghana wins. It means that take it to Parliament, get parliamentary approval, let them approve the terms and conditions.
And finally, people, before I let you go, I mean, the second motion that was admitted by the Speaker of Parliament earlier today was for the setting up of a committee to probe the National Cathedral and all related matters, as in monies that have been spent so far, and then also the auditing of the expenditure and monies collected in the name of the National Cathedral. Yes, it would come down to the numbers, but how would you expect things to play out in Parliament about this cathedral motion?
Okay, yes, numbers, but also, so expectations first, simple answer. I'm expecting that the motion, they would pass it, that the majority will support the minority. I expect them to, because you remember, so they want investigation. What is the motion for? To investigate the whole cathedral project. Is that not so?
Indeed,
it
yes.
helps. And not too distant past. You remember the minority asked for the COVID accounts to be audited. The majority refused. No. Eventually, the IMF stepped in and said they wanted the accounts audited, and it was done, right? So I'm expecting that, to the extent that in the recent past, the IMF had to come in and ask us to audit the COVID account before we did. Please, the majority shouldn't miss another opportunity to put Ghana up there. Why would we be running away from auditing and investigating the cathedral project? It is provided for in Article 103. It says that Parliament, investigate, do inquiries into the activities of ministries, agencies, etc. So the Office of the President is helping, and the National Museum Board, they say they are doing a cathedral project, and Parliament has misgivings and wants to find out what it is. So be it. Look at Article 103. Yes, 103 is there. Oversight. Parliament has set up committees to investigate. So let's do it. You see, Mr. Ocansey, we are getting tired of the system in which the thing is obviously black, but our politicians want us to believe it is white. No, it's sickening. We are getting tired. And you see, if our politicians don't sit up, and there will be a rapture. Because when you talk, you meet everyday citizens, everybody is just sick and tired of the current dispensation. It's just sickening. You see, we were very excited that now the numbers, you have 136, but unfortunately, the TPC is not able to sit, and so the minority numbers have come down. And then, the Honorable Isiama chose to work with the
NPP
and give them majority. It's sad, but at least, we still have some excitement. But what we're saying is that now the excitement alone is not sufficient. The MP should do us honest. We should stand up. Mr. Ocansey, what do we want in this life? I don't know how to say it in English, but we say in P. Can't we, for once, let honesty, let integrity prevail in our system?
Right.
Because it's just sickening. Every day you come, these political issues, we come. Tomorrow morning I'll come. We'll sit down there, we talk. And yet these are politicians very crooked. I don't know, what are we looking for? What are we looking for? If we build a better system, won't all of us, our children, come to take over, and would all of them enjoy? Why would some always insist on breaking the rules and making sure that they take everything for themselves? Yeah, because if you see somebody trying to say, no, the cathedral project should not be investigated, when you go down there, you see that somebody is there, or is most likely to be motivated for opposing it. When we all know that this cathedral project is really, really, really not the best at this time. And you remember also, to put it in context, in the budget, they smuggled in a line item, 80 million for the cathedral project. And the minority stood up, fought, and then I think the majority eventually supported them, and it was taken out. So, though we are bashing the majority a bit, we also just remember that when they were passing the budget, they agreed, and then the 80 million was lifted from the cathedral project and taken to a different ministry. So we pray that the majority should join the minority again and let Article 103 work. Parliament must have oversight. They must be able to investigate. Activities of the executive. Yeah, that should help.
Lawyer Martin Pebo, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Lawyer Martin Pebo is a private legal practitioner. He is a leader of one of three individual bondholder groups talking about the development in Parliament earlier today. Some 29 minutes at the top of the hour 6 here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. If you just joined us, we've been sinking our teeth into the happenings in Parliament earlier today. The Speaker of Parliament has admitted a private member's motion from the Minority Caucus to allow the setting up of a committee to probe the National Cathedral and all related matters. A simple audit of how much money has been spent so far, the sources of said monies, and how much money has been collected in the name of the National Cathedral, any policy document, the period of completion. All of these questions, the minority, that committee will also make that's appropriate recommendations for the constitution of Parliament. We'll see how things play out. When you go on our Facebook page right now, we have a copy of the notice of motion. And that's what happened in Parliament earlier today. That's 3FM 927. Go on our Facebook page now. That page in the order paper of Parliament earlier today, we have it displayed right now on our Facebook page, 3FM 927. You're going to see it right there, capturing the two private members' motion on the cathedral and on the Speaker admitting that other motion requesting the Finance Minister to present to Parliament government's domestic debt action program and the details of it thereof. So that's the detail that we have from Parliament and how things played out earlier today. It's live on Facebook now on 3FM 927. Let's go to Nigeria quickly, because Nigeria's Supreme Court has ruled that old banknotes remain legal tender until the end of the year, bringing relief to millions of Nigerians affected by a chaotic redesign of the Naira notes. The justices said that not enough notice was given to the public before the old notes were withdrawn. Not enough of the new notes were released, leading to widespread anger and frustration. Many people were unable to get cash to pay for food and slept outside banks. We saw the long winding queues, and what a person to give us a clear and vivid picture of this than our very own Komla Kloche, who was in the heart of Abuja manning the election command center coverage of the just ended Nigeria elections. He's back in Ghana. Guess what? He's seated right before me in the studio. Kamla, welcome. Congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you so much.
It's
Thank
great
you
stuff.
so much, Alfred.
And this is on behalf of the Ghanaian people. Now, you came face. Indeed, it's been tough.
Well, it's okay. We're getting used to it, so it's fine.
Absolutely.
But hey, I think I must say a lot of thanks to the team back at the base, to the group CEO, to Antiama, to the CFO, to the CEO, to Michael, to my boss at radio. How could I have forgotten it? He's just behind me hearing it, but of course he knows how he's been of tremendous support. Even before I left, he kept asking me if everything was okay, if I had all my contacts everything ready. I think I must be very, very thankful to him, and also to the team back here. I think you guys did the much more of the work. If you hadn't worked on the stories, I'm not sure they would have been on TV or on radio for people to know. So hey, many thanks to all of you.
Great stuff. That's exactly why we're in this together. But tell us, how impactful was this Naira shortage and the reason behind it? That what they didn't want the vote buying ahead of the elections. How did that play out?
That's one of the explanations or the reasons being given, and that's actually not even official. No, it's not official that the reason that they're doing this is just to cut down on the level of corruption, because they knew, days to the elections, the Nigerians that we know, a lot of them will be dishing out money here and there and all that. But who said money was still not dished out? They were able to dish out money. We saw stories of somebody who was arrested, a politician who was arrested with 500,000 USD. Where did he get that kind of money from?
Yeah, that was just like a day before the election.
And that's money that he was actually holding in his hand. We have heard and saw pictures of bullion vans running across Nigeria. Being run by some of the governors and was going around distributing money. Of course, elections in Africa, not just in Africa, but the world as at large, it's run with money. But I'm not too sure why the issue of the Naira became an issue where, there was lack of it in this. And I think that the ruling by the Supreme Court is quite a tactful one. I think is the best thing that should have been done. In fact, I was telling them that if this issue of the Naira crunch had happened in Ghana, whoever did that would never be forgotten, will never be forgiven
in there.
Because it is just not possible that you introduce a new currency and then you are facing off the old one concurrently, especially when you know that when new currencies come, they don't print too much of it into the system.
Absolutely.
It takes time because it needs to circulate around. So I was telling them that no, for Ghana, it will not happen. In fact, it was difficult. For me, myself, the only time I had to see Naira for the first time, the new note, was actually 2 days ago.
2 days ago?
It was only 2 days ago. All the 8 days I spent in Nigeria, I only saw the new Naira note for the first time 2 days ago. And that was actually a very, very, very big man who had gone to interview, and I said, I have not seen the new Naira note. I want to see how it looks like. Because if you're going, whatever you do, you don't have the cash to pay for it. Our hotel, we couldn't pay the cash for it because they were not accepting it. It was
wow,
difficult. Even our SIM card, food you buy, water to drink, it's difficult. The only option was for you to transfer, and that's the normal way that they use. But even that, they were using USSD. It was just not going. The networks were down when you have to send a USSD.
Obviously, because of the load of
exactly. Everybody was doing the same thing. So you have to try. There were times that people will be trying. You are going to buy, let's say, like fish in the market. Instead of spending about 5 to 10 minutes, you are spending close to 45 minutes on just buying one fish, and you may not even be successful after all. So it was a lot of workload on the people. They were not happy about it, but I think that, they were beginning to get used to the system already. Nigerians, as we know them, the issue of transfer, POS usage and all that is something they already used. But
indeed,
this particular one did come at a point where the people didn't expect it. So they now have to face off. In fact, there was this young lady who I think about 3 or 4 days ago, we spoke to her that she had gone to dispense cash at the ATM and she had 20,000 Naira notes. And in fact, the Naira she had was dirty and smelly. If you are even about 100 meters away from her, you could still hear the same very pungent smell. And this was dispensed from a very notable bank that also has
a branch
here. Yes. And unfortunately, when she had the money from the ATM, she asked that no, this is not what she's looking for. She wanted to take it back immediately into the bank to redeposit it into her account. They said, no, it's impossible for you to do it. You have to come back after a week. And these are realities that the people were facing. I saw people who, let me just speak to what happened last night when we were doing a broadcast from the FCMB. The people were the people who had queued from all the way 6 a.m. and even as of 9 p.m. they did not even have a single Naira. And there were women who had their kids tied at their back, and all some needed was just about 200 Naira to be able to go and buy something for the children to eat. And it was so depressing. So it is how bad this whole thing had been around them. And for me, I think that to a very large extent, to a very, 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 very large extent, this ruling by the Supreme Court, very relieving. In fact, I got to the airport and the Nigerians, there was a Nigerian senator on the flight who immediately we touched down. Then he
got notice of this.
Yeah, he got notice of it, and then he said, glory to God that they have had this. And in fact, I was speaking to him more frequently. He was like, we have no idea how this has actually affected them. He were people who had come. Services, people cannot pay for the services because it's just not going to. But, well, with this ruling, we also need to know. It would have been good to see the reaction of the people, one on the street, and also see whether even the people were even going to get access to the old one. There are people who have already taken the old ones into the banks, and they are not even having access to the new Naira notes.
Let's go straight to Lagos and Abuja now, and just as you asked the question, what is the reaction of the people to this latest development, the ruling by the Supreme Court on this matter, especially because, as you indicated, they were getting used to the situation there? Abdul Latif Ahmed is the head of research and monitoring desk at News Central. News Central is one of the major news outlets in Nigeria. He's joining us on Zoom from his base in Lagos. Abdul Latif, thank you so much for connecting with us on Hot Edition. So this ruling, how are the Nigerian people reacting to it as we speak?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's an exciting news. A lot of Nigerians are excited about the ruling because a long-drawn, difficult phase may soon be relieved because the policy by the federal government to clean up the space for, to revamp the space, taking out about 2.1 trillion Naira notes and injecting new notes of about 500 billion caused a lot of economic hardship. People queued for too long, in the banks. People slumped. Some died. A pregnant woman died in queue. Businesses, small businesses that relied on little amount of cash, physical cash on a daily basis suffered. And then imagine 42 million Nigerians are unbanked. So a lot of Nigerians were in a very difficult situation, trying to access monies that were really, really insufficient in the system. So the mood at the moment, from what the feelers, from what I've seen, shows that people are excited about this ruling.
Rightly so, but my colleague who was with you, who's just arrived in Ghana, also indicated that the people were just getting used to the state of affairs. So any indication of how they are now going to reverse the process of getting used to how life was becoming without the Naira and this development from the Supreme Court?
Okay, well, it is fine. I mean, in most of the cities across the country, people are getting used to it. I mean, what this means is that in most of the cities across the country, there are POS operators, there are ATMs, there are people who can easily dispense cash. So people are gradually adjusting. It's a beautiful idea. However, it is in the execution that is problematic because you cannot clean up that much trillion of Naira from the system and expect over 200 million Nigerians to rely on, that little amount that has been injected into the system, because what has been injected was less than 35%. And if you're going to do that, one fundamental error in the execution is that the CBN did not take the states along. So if you do not take the states along, you will have issues because there are states that have a lot of agrarian population. Those who have no connectivity, they have no POS in their communities, they deal with daily transactions on the physical level. And so you must create a system where, the banking infrastructure can handle transactions that, will be able to mitigate issues of network problems and, delay transactions and all of that. So yes, while people are getting used to it, a lot of needless losses in terms of how much you need to pay the POS operators in order to be able to access cash, for example. So it's a welcome development. We are adjusting, but the judgment from the Supreme Court is excellent. It is timely because it is going to create a lot of relief for Nigerians who need to adjust to the new policy, but the gradual adjustment is what makes it better.
Latif, so and finally, we've seen protests greeting the outcome of the results, and then also the eventual this declaration of Bola Tinubu as president-elect. What's the situation now, quickly, before we go?
What we have is there are protests, but these protests are pockets of protests. People will never agree that they've lost elections. what the fundamental issue is in the collation and what we had on the IREV, on the INEC server. But what I insist on is the duplicates of the results at each polling unit. As long as parties have duplicates of such results, that can be collated and tendered in the court. If the numbers that were collated are more than numbers that INEC say collated, then there is a solid ground, to challenge the outcome of the election. Again, if there are other cases of voter suppression that can be established in court, then fine. Otherwise, it will repeat itself every time we have an election, that people who have lost will definitely say that they were rigged out or they were cheated, in the election. However, the elections in Nigeria are pretty expensive, 355 billion, but it is not how expensive it is the process that is as important as the outcome. The most fundamental problem in this election year is that we have, low voter turnout, and in a country of over 200 million people, it will be almost unforgivable to have less than 10 million people deciding the fate and direction of the country.
Abdul Latif, thank you so much for your thoughts on this. Really appreciate it as always.
Thank you for having me.
Abdul Latif Ahmed is head of research and monitoring desk at News Central, a major news outlet in Nigeria. So, Kamala, and this way, finally, you interacted with more of these protesters on the streets of Abuja, Lagos, and all these places where you were. Any sign of they giving up even after their leadership have indicated they are heading to the Supreme Court to challenge the results?
No, they said theirs is to be on the street until they get what they want to ask them what they want. They said, well, it's all about getting the right thing done. INEC needs to go back and redo what they did and give them the results that they know how they voted. They know it was not, or this is not a true reflection of how they voted. So the protest would continue in as much as the people or the Labour Party and the PDP have gone to court. So, well, as to whether that can be sustained, but in Nigeria, we know when it comes to the issue of demonstrations, at least they have that energy, I must tell you. And to be honest, the protests that it did got the attention of the international community. They were very strategic at where they did the demonstrations, even though the international community did actually not even come out to receive a petition or anything. At least they got to know that this was all that was going on the street.
Super. Kamala, thank you so much. Appreciate it as always.
And many thanks to Dela as well. She's been a go-to woman.
Some magic for you. Some fantastic contacts in Nigeria.
This is roadside.
This is roadside indeed.
We cannot give up at this point. The battle has just begun. This is not the youth. This is not the generation to actually play with. The contract was simple. INEC chairman told the whole world in Chatham House, in Abuja, in Lagos, that the beavers, it was going to work. That was why educated Nigerians, even the ones that never went to school, Muslim, Christians, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Fulani, some flew back from diaspora.
The Nigerian contact woman. Do you now know the health benefits of Gobe? It's part of the business.
The health benefits.
It's part of the business news for tonight.
It is. I mean, and I'm sure that sales will, skyrocket once 3FM has done the Gobe Festival, a quite successful one. So we hope to see. But there are more news in the world of business. We begin with it's costing government about 4 billion cedis in interest payment on treasury bills between December last year and now. That is 3 months. This has raised fears amongst many analysts that government's increased appetite for borrowing on the domestic market, coupled with high interest rates, may soon get out of hand. 3 Business actually has been analyzing the figures and reports.
The decline in bond market activity over the last few months has compelled government to resort to T-bills auction, which has witnessed massive patronage. Between December 2022 to end of February, it cost the government of Ghana an estimated 4.41 billion cedis in interest payments on treasury bills. In the last 3 months, government has secured a total of 33 billion cedis worth of T-bills on the market at an average yield of 35%. In comparison to January this year, it appears government's appetite for borrowing on the domestic market has increased. Last month, government borrowed up to 13 billion cedis at an interest cost of 35.5%. This has propelled investor interest in treasury bills due to the lucrative interest on the market. But how sustainable will the high interest rates be? Courage Buti is with GCB Capital.
Last week, it was about 5 billion in demand. And that's because T-bills are offering 35% plus now. And people seem to prefer that to the bonds that are doing 8, 9, and at best maybe 15% for the category B bondholders, really. And so naturally, people find that attractive, and that is why you see a lot of funds flowing in there. But over time, the T-bill rate will even out. We've seen inflation begin to slow. Whether that trend will continue or not is yet to be seen. But ultimately, inflation will recede, and then you begin to see T-bill rates also recede alongside.
A report put together by 3 Business. Away from that, banking consultant Dr. Richmond Ituahene says the call by Germany for Ghana to cut its government size and reduce wasteful expenditure is a position of the European Union. Dr. Ituahene says unless the government heed to their call and implements the reforms, the bilateral creditors in the EU bloc will not support Ghana's request for a bailout.
7% GDP, that is above the fiscal responsible 5%. We have 62 billion, which is 7.7. And what the German ambassador said is very true. If you want me to help you, you must also help yourself. You don't expect somebody to help you while you don't help yourself. So I think he's making and this thing has been said over and over again. And maybe when the Europeans say it, maybe the German ambassador says it. And these days, let us take it from this point. It's not the German ambassador. The Germans currently in the EU, they are the most bigger contributor.
And you heard banking consultant Dr. Richmond Ituahene there. Let's wrap up business news now with some city updates. As we know, the city has been depreciating for some time now, but there are fears that in the coming months we'll see more depreciation with the Ghana city. Let's listen to Kojo Lecha.
This is sort of expected, and we're going to see more of these fluctuations up until we see some clear communication from the IMF's board, because currently there's a lot of uncertainty on the market, and dollar liquidity again has proved to be a problem. Even though BOG has been somewhat supportive, this week they provided well close to about $6 million on the market at some cheap price, but this really didn't have so much effect on the dollar CD pair. So we're expecting this to be sustained for the near term, maybe the next month.
You heard market analyst Kojo Lecha there with regard to the Ghana cedi, its performance in the coming months. That's all the business news we have for you on Hot Edition. When you log on to 3news.com, there's more business news. Yeah, Ofusulabi. Yeah, how do you like your gobe?
With Gary, a lot of Gary.
do you like the pepper? There is one.
Yeah.
Okay. Then over to you.
Let's get into sports news. My name is Yao Fusulabi, and supporters of Accra Hearts of Oak stormed the club's training grounds this morning to prevent coach Slavko Matic from training. Their motive was, however, unsuccessful, as the Serbian boss went through to complete the final training session ahead of Kumasi Asante Kotoko's clash on Sunday. Chapter O chairman Awal Osman spoke to 3 Sports on the action they took.
I am Chapter O chairman. I'm speaking now in the capacity of Chapter O chairman. Those guys that led the sacking of the coach from the training ground today, I gave them my power. I gave them the backing. I asked them to lead a crusade to go and fire the coach from the training ground. Do you know why? Because supporters are not happy with the performance of the coach, and the management or those who brought the coach are just sitting there idle doing.
Well, you heard that from Awal Osman, who is chairman of the Chapter O. Now, Hearts of Oak play Asante Kotoko on Sunday in March Day 20 of the Bet Power Ghana Premier League at the Accra Sports Stadium. The match will also double as a commemorative game for Ghana's 66th independence anniversary. Here is Galka boss Kujofiano.
So what we are even thinking is that we will get some of the old players, the Oseku Force, the Ahimfuls, to play a curtain raiser. So we are killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Have something in memory or in remembrance of, or as we prepare for Achu's funeral. This will also serve as a precursor to it. Then we have the President's Cup, or this match also serving as a league match, and at the same time a precursor. So Ghanaians should, at least, we should try and celebrate innovations.
His name is Kujo Fiano, and he's boss of the Ghana League Clubs Association. Now to some more stories. And the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council (GPCC) visited the Christian Achu family to commiserate with them ahead of the 1 week's observation of the Black Stars forward, led by the president of the council, Apostle Eric Nyamiche. The visit was to meet the spiritual and social needs of the affected family in the crucial time.
In times like this, we have to rise to the occasion. It is our job to bring consolation and strength to the family. That is why we came. We just came to encourage the family and then identify with them, sympathize with them. His death and his demise is a very painful one. Like I was saying, it's like a cruel net that has caught a fish in the sea. We want to encourage them to commit themselves to Jesus whilst they continue with whatever they are involved in.
Well, that's Apostle Eric Nyamiche there, and he's the president of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. Now, also present was the family of Thomas Partey, Ghana's deputy captain, who made a donation of water and sympathized with the family.
Christian Achu or Blaster, Partey, the senior player, Christian Achu. I saw
Achu was Partey's senior in the Black Stars. Achu is my son, just like Partey. They are like brothers. It was only prudent we came to sympathize with the family.
Well, that's Jacob Partey there, the brother of Thomas Partey at Achu's residence there. Now to our final story. And Neymar will miss Paris Saint-Germain's Champions League round of 16 second leg with Bayern Munich through injury. That's what Christophe Galtier, who's manager of PSG, has confirmed. The Brazil forward was carried off with an injured right ankle during PSG's 4-3 home win over Lille on the 19th of February. And also, Manchester United teenager Alejandro Garnacho has been called up by the world champions Argentina for the second time and could make his debut in the upcoming friendlies. My name is Alfred Ocansey, and that's all the sports on a hot edition tonight.
It's Gobbe. Saturday, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
At the Tetekwashi interchange.
You know it.
The heart of the city.
Sharp.
We are eating beans.
Sharp.
And Gary.
I'm ready.
And palm oil.
I'm ready.
And Friday. Yeah.
It's been a while ahead of that, yeah? I'll see you tomorrow.
Anyway, Tertiary teacher unions have, with immediate effect, suspended the payment of subscription fees to the National Pension Regulatory Authority and PRA. The unions, comprising the Ghana Association of Teachers, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, took the decision after accusing the NPRA of failing to compel government to pay over 400 million cedis, second-tier pension funds that have been in arrears. The unions say government owes them 8 months pension contributions. They say several calls on the NPRA to do the needful by compelling government